So Doofus Trump actually literally announced a national emergency, or he announced that he's going to be, filing a national emergency to basically allow him to take money and reappropriate it. I believe he's going to extract some from the military and some from the treasury and other places. And he's going to do this to build his wall because he was unable to get Congress to appropriate the wall that he had. And as we know, Congress appropriates, the president doesn't. So this is absolutely insane. And we're going to get into this here in a second. But Tomi Lahren is going to deep throat President Trump. And this is where Tomi Lahren is a joke, and also where that she's just kind of a very vapid person who I don't think understands the very basic, constitutional conflicts that come into play here, where you have Congress and the legislative branch who's supposed to appropriate the government, and the president literally, who's not supposed to appropriate funds, is bucking Congress, whose job it is to appropriate funds, in order for him to appropriate funds, which is absolutely insane. So she's about to deep throat Trump here. Check it out, and we'll come back and talk about it.
Valentine's Day. Yesterday, President Trump gave the country the biggest I love you by vowing to declare a national emergency and build that wall. Hi, I'm Tomi, and you bet I have some final thoughts. Guys, I was worried. That so-called deal offered up by the Democrats is disappointing to say the least. $1.375 billion for physical barriers. That would fund about 55 miles of fencing. We need far more. Even the $5.7 billion Trump asked for wasn't enough. The bill also has $1.7 billion for food welfare to foreign countries and $102 billion for food welfare in the U.S. Yes, that means the Democrats did indeed offer more funding for foreign countries than securing our border. They also clung to their dream of reducing the number of beds in ICE detention centers. Why? Well, fewer beds, less space means more illegals released with a notice to appear, which is in practice more of a notice to disappear. All in all, I still think this bill is trash, but it kind of doesn't even matter because Trump made a power move and said, sure, I'll take your $1.4 billion and I'll also declare a national emergency. That is our president. That is the man we elected to get things done. He had me worried this week. I was nervous the rhinos would get in his ear and talk him out of a shutdown or national emergency. That's why I and others applied the pressure. I knew if President Trump just took the deal and did nothing else, we'd be screwed in 2020 and we'd be screwed for generations to come. The Democrats knew it too, which is probably why Chief Trump hater and representative from the California district I currently reside in, Teddy Lou, liked this tweet. They thought they had our president in the palm of their thieving, illegal immigrant coddling hands. Well, plot twist. Of course, Nancy has already issued a warning.
If the president can declare an emergency on something that he has created as an emergency, an illusion that he wants to convey, just think of what a president with different values can present to the American people. You want to talk about a national emergency? Let's talk about today, the one-year anniversary of another manifestation of the epidemic of gun violence in America. That's a national emergency. Why don't you declare that emergency, Mr. President? I wish you would. But a Democratic president can do that. Democratic president can declare emergencies as well.
Hey, Nance, here's the difference. Trump wants to secure the border and protect the sovereignty of our country. You want to strip away our Second Amendment rights. That's a little different. Oh, and of course, Cammie had to jump in tweeting, declaring a national emergency over this president's vanity project is ridiculous. We don't need a wall. Instead, we should address the actual emergencies facing our country. Everything from gun violence to the opioid crisis. Hey, Cam, who the hell do you think brings those opioids into this country? Yeah, that's right, illegals. Go back to celebrating your college pot smoking and give it a rest. Of course, these Democrats have their panties in a bunch. They're nervous they won't get the influx of illegals crossing the border and right into their voting bloc. Too bad, guys, and good for you, Donald Trump. You showed them who their president is. Those are my final thoughts from LA. God bless and build that wall.
So I don't even know if she's one of those conservatives who brands herself as a constitutional conservative. I know that that's what Ben Shapiro, brands himself as. And maybe to his credit, I was on his Twitter page. He seemed to be retweeting tweets that were sort of in opposition somewhat to Trump's national emergency, but I'm going to have to wait to see what he says because he has let me down a lot on the consistency train. So I'm going to have to wait on that to figure it out. But the point here being, and she's going to, she talked about the Second Amendment there, so she at least is somewhat talking about the Constitution, but to a lot of conservatives, the only amendment they know is usually the second one. So this is really, really crazy because especially if you're a constitutional conservative, but, the whole point of the power of the purse being given to Congress was literally made by the founders to prevent the executive branch, the president, from spending, from appropriating money without congressional approval. It's explicitly stated in the Constitution. Now, there is now obviously this, sort of provision that we have now that's being used, which is, a national emergency. And there was a law passed in 1976 that made it into more formal terms. That was signed by Gerald Ford. It was signed into law by Gerald Ford. But basically, there have been about 6 national emergencies declared since that law was passed in 1976. So I'm gonna break this down for you guys. I'm gonna read you guys this. It's gonna help us understand this situation. This from the New York Times. It says, presidents have declared national emergencies under a 1970s era law about 6 times, and 31 of those prior emergencies remain active. But most of them dealt with foreign crises and involved freezing property, blocking trade exports, or taking other actions against national adversaries, not redirecting money without explicit congressional authorization. White House officials cited only 2 times that such emergency declarations were used by presidents to spend money without legislative approval, once by President George Bush in 1990 during the run-up to the Persian Gulf War, and again by his son President George W. Bush in 2001 after the attacks in New York, Washington, and Pennsylvania. In both of those cases, the presidents were responding to new events, the Iraqi invasion of Kuwait and al-Qaeda's assault on the United States, and were moving military funds around for military purposes. Neither was taking action specifically rejected by Congress. So the whole point of this sort of national emergency thing is supposed to be, in specific emergencies, my understanding is whenever Congress doesn't really have the time to act, and it's something that happens really, kind of out of the blue, and anytime it really has to do with okay, I'm going to decide to appropriate this money in this way, it's only in these specific scenarios of when 9/11 happened. So that's supposed to be the situation where you dude, think about how crazy that is. You're talking about getting into a fight with Congress where Congress refuses to appropriate your wall, the funding for your wall. The Constitution states that they're the ones with the power of the purse. It's supposed to, be mainly the House, and, the House, it originates in the House. The bill originates in the House, and it's supposed to be appropriated by Congress. And the whole point of that was because the founders wanted to make sure that the executive couldn't just appropriate money without congressional approval. And you're talking about you can't get Congress or the American people to support you, by the way. 70% didn't want funding for the border wall, and Congress didn't agree with him. So you're bucking Congress, who appropriates the funds. You're bucking the American people who don't agree with you. This is just like a tyrannical dictatorship type move here, because you are, just totally bucking the Constitution of the United States. And again, there were, a bunch of national emergencies declared, but there were never times where it was in a move to buck. And in fact, a vast majority of them were irrelevant of, funding or appropriations of anything, so a lot of them had to do with, we're going to freeze these assets or whatever from Iran. Like, I think that's what Jimmy Carter did during the Iran hostage crisis. So they don't even have to do with the appropriations of funds, which is what this one has to do with. If you are, anybody who respects the Constitution anyway, understands the Constitution in any way, and doesn't want, tyrannical presidencies where you can, dude, think about how insane that is, man. Our Constitution outlines that Congress is the one that is to, has the power of the purse. They're supposed to appropriate funds, and the president can't get the Congress to appropriate it, can't even get the American people to agree with him, and says, fuck it, I'm going to announce a national emergency to say, hey, I'm going to take this funding from the military, and then, I think he took some from the Treasury too, and he took some from other places to add it. And by the way, Tomi says in there, oh, that 1.7 billion wasn't enough. Even the 5.7 billion wasn't enough. That's all true, and you're actually, kind of proving our point here. But just so you guys know, the idea that his border wall would cost $5 billion is the most hilarious thing I've ever heard, because first of all, that won't even be the actual cost of the full wall, and he's just done that to basically, he's like, oh, I need to have brownie points in the next election. So what he's done is he's compromised the size of it as long as it's still built, because then the talking point lives on. But the problem is, and here's the thing, the idea of building a border wall is not as simple as it sounds, not even close, because you have to seize land. This comes into eminent domain. There's another part of the Constitution you're talking about where, it's in the Constitution where you can't. I think it's the Fifth Amendment that says that you can't take someone's land without proper compensation. So these kinds of things get litigated into the next century. Okay, you're talking about long time litigation. You have to pay for lawyers. You have to fight these court cases, dude. You've got 2 years left in your presidency, so it's going to get hung up in the courts because of that. It'll probably get hung up in the courts for other reasons too. And that's not even enough money to actually build the fucking wall in the first place. So that whole thing is a total BS thing. And then there's a point made by Democrats who say, hey, and even some Republicans who say, hey, if you're going to declare a national emergency in a situation where Congress refuses to appropriate you funds for whatever, bullshit that you want, think about what a Democratic president can do for something like, and they brought it up, Nancy, piece of shit Pelosi brought it up. She said, gun violence. And did you see Tommy's response? Like, oh, well, there's a difference, you want to take away our Second Amendment rights. He's trying to secure the border. First of all, who's trying to take away your Second Amendment rights? And second of all, how are you going to praise one part of the Constitution while literally bulldozing one of the, the Second Amendment is an amendment to the Constitution, but you're talking about the appropriation of funds for, like, Congress appropriating funds is, like, almost one of the bedrocks. I mean, it is one of the bedrocks, not an amendment. It's part of the, it's part of the Constitution, and it outlines how our government is supposed to function. So don't give me your Second Amendment bullshit, because you just cherry-pick parts of the Constitution, and, we're not trying to go after the Second Amendment. We want universal background checks. We want to close the gun show loophole. We want to do a bunch, banning bump stocks, a bunch of different things like that. So don't give me any of that bullshit, okay? And dude, you're just getting into subjective differences. Are you serious? Yeah. Well, so to you, the border wall thing seems like a good idea or an important one, but to other people, it's not. First of all, border walls are not effective. They're a joke. They're not going to do shit, okay? But you're just getting into subjective territory here, and I don't know if she understands it. And by the way, this final thoughts segment and the setup of it is really unbearable, dude. I really can't bear it. It's too much for me to handle. I can't. It's really off-putting, I have to say, And then the last thing that I will, touch on here is Tomi doing this really exposes her as being just a completely massive buffoon, dude. Just a huge, huge buffoon with no principles, no nothing. This is going to be a really good, test to see which conservatives are actual believers in the Constitution and which conservatives are not believers in the Constitution. We'll find out here in a second. Tomi Lahren obviously is a joke. Tomi Lahren will deep throat Trump for a wall. She will do anything. She refuses, if it means bucking the base bedrock of the Constitution and essentially enabling a tyrannical government of the president can now just buck Congress and buck the Constitution to appropriate funds for shit that Congress refused to appropriate. This is just, it's absolute lunacy, man. It's absolute lunacy. So anyways, those are, hopefully it's a good breakdown for you guys on the Trump, national emergency for the border. But this was really, really hard to watch.